So good afternoon to every attendees. My name is Pran, and I will be your MC for today. I would like to welcome everyone to the last webinar of today at ASEAN's Energy and Utilities Digital Week. And this webinar will be discussed under the topic of the ASEAN Bioenergy. So this webinar is organized by the Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment, King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, together with the Informa Markets in Thailand, and powered by ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week 2021 or ASEUDW, the ASEAN largest international conference and exhibitions on renewable energy, energy efficiency, electric vehicles, and environmental technologies, which will be held on 14 to 16 of October in 2021 at Bangkok, Thailand. So the webinar will highlight the challenge and the opportunities of bioenergy technologies and policy to achieve sustainable and affordable energy in ASEAN through country updates and panel discussions. This webinar will bring together all the panelists from Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Germany. And before we start, I would like to quickly mention to you about the housekeeping rules. So on your conference theater, there is the webinar assistant on your bottom right-hand side. Once you click there, there will be 3 tabs. One is the live discussion. So the live discussions between the audience is available. So if you would like to chat, you can click at the chat tab. And if you wish to ask the questions to our speaker, so please leave your question at the question tab. And then our moderator will bring it up during the Q&A at the end of the sessions. If you have any problems during the webinar, so you may need our help, so you send to your help to our help tab over there. And next, so without any further delay, I would like to introduce you about our moderator for this webinar. This is Dr. Nuwong Chulakuk. So he is the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Research Team leader at the National Energy Technology Center. So he has been moved to the National Energy Technology Center or NTEC, which is under the National Science and Technology Development Agency or NISTA, and focusing on the energy transitions through electrifications. So his recent work with the ASEAN Center of Energy is to establish the ASEAN Biofuels Roadmap for regional collaborations. Good afternoon, Dr. Nuwong. Yes, I would like to pass the floor to you to moderate the sessions.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Khun Pran, for kindly introducing this session and also introducing me. So without further ado, I think this afternoon is probably my hardest job to moderate this session since it's the last session of the day. So for those of you who are visiting us online, I think you have been sticking at since the beginning when we have the ASEAN Renewable Energy and followed by some talk in script and as well as the solar in Malaysia. So in this section, of course, we are looking at the for example speaker regarding ASEAN bioenergy. Everyone keeps saying that with the incoming of the trend for electrification, digitization, EV, what about biofuel or bioenergy? Do we still have this future in this region or not? I think for today, I think we have 4 speakers. So without further ado, I think I would like to introduce the first speaker, Mr. Tang Kok Min. He's Managing Director of the Rapid Genesis in Malaysia, and he's going to tell us a bit more about the status and outlook of the bioenergy in Malaysia. Mr. Tang, the floor is yours. We have about 10-15 minutes, and then keep, like Khun Pran mentioned, keep the session at the end. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Nuwong, thank you. Thank you also for the organizer to invite me to speak about the status and outlook of bioenergy in Malaysia. Okay, so let me just go into full screen. Okay, before we go there, I'll just go very quick about what we do. My company, Rapid Genesis, we provide consulting services in sustainable technologies, circular economy, biomass to bioenergy to biomaterials, and also in terms of GHG and life cycle assessment. All right. Now, regarding Malaysia, in terms of renewable energy targets, I think some of you who have attended some of the previous session by my other Malaysians will have known that since the last 20 years, Malaysia has been slowly moving towards putting more renewable energy into our electricity mix in our power generation. And the latest targets that we have set is by 2025, we would have 31%. And by 2035, we would have 40%. That is in line with, firstly, of course, our Malaysian commitment to reduce our GHG intensity in the global setting. And also, we want to be less dependent on fossil fuel because eventually, you know that fossil fuel will become more and more expensive. It's also part of our need for energy security and reducing dependency on imported energy. So as of 2021, this year, the amount of RE in our national mix is only about 8 megawatts. And by 2035, where we target 40%, it should reach 18 gigawatts. However, the issue is for the last couple of years, including the last 2 years, there have been a lot of economical and political challenges in Malaysia. We have changes in the government, in political parties. We have the COVID pandemic, and even now we are struggling to get back to the normal situation. So all that is very, very challenging, and of course, it's also challenging to the cost of energy because we have to compete after we are out of this COVID. All right. The other things that took place was that over the last 4 to 5 years, there have been more and more focus on solar PV. So as some of you have also attended the previous session by my fellow countrymen on the situation of solar PV in Malaysia. So solar PV, the cost has gone down a lot. So which is why there's a lot of businesses, a lot of financing, a lot of money available towards that. All right. But let's go back to bioenergy. Now, bioenergy in my scope of definition is we're talking about 3 different types of conditions, or which is the solid biomass, primary from agriculture waste, palm industry is our biggest, so we have a lot of palm biomass. We also have our woody biomass. We have our forestry timber, and we are moving towards sustainable forestry. So there will be a sustainable supply of wood-based biomass. There is also a potential in the paddy from the rice husks. For example, like I think Thailand and Vietnam is very much ahead, but we do have some in our country. In the state of Sarawak, we have the sago, which is a food source in specific to the country, to the state of Sarawak. And recently, we also have been looking into Kenas biomass as a byproduct, right? So this is an overview map of the situation here in Malaysia in terms of technology. So you can see that those in the blue will be the one that is already in the commercial status. The one in the yellow is still in the pilot trials. Over the last 10 years, there have been some attempts to bring in certain technology into Malaysia, but some were not successful. For example, gasification. We know that gasification is it's very popular in India, Thailand, and some parts of Europe, but somehow it doesn't take any foothold here in Malaysia. So it has not been very successful, frankly speaking. And there are also a lot of R&D stage we has been taking place for the last 10 years because the Malaysian government is very encouraging on the commercialization of R&D. So bioenergy is one of them. Okay. In terms of solid biomass, this is the one we have. I put that into pictures for everyone in case you're not familiar. Rice husks, palm EFB or empty fruit bunches, wood chips, palm trunks, or we call OPT, oil palm trunks, from the replanting of oil palm in Malaysia. Palm kernel shell, which is very popular for export to Japan and Korea. And we also have a lot of them have been compressed into few pellets for exporting. Okay, in terms of solid biomass, now, the first we want to talk about the biomass power generation. Now, when Malaysia started on the journey towards the bioenergy, of course, naturally we will look at the palm biomass, which is a lot. You know, from the 80s onwards, we have been having a lot of palm biomass, which was a waste. So there was a time where there was a lot of potential, and the government was working really hard to push that. That's why since 20, 30 years ago, we have a lot of programs along the way. Every 5 years, there is a program. But one of the main problems that we face is when you want to build a biomass power plant, you have a very high capex and opex. And our FIT rate has been relatively low as compared to other countries. So I remember many years ago, we have some dialogue session with the biomass power player, and a lot were actually struggling because of the high capex. That is basically like a situation where if they invest in high-end equipment for power generation, high capex, but it runs efficiently, but they have to pay very, very high investment upfront. But some they go for cheaper, lower efficiency power plants, lower capital investment, but they find that the OPEX become very high because of the low thermal efficiency. So that basically that three elements in the biomass power plant does not balance itself. And I think about 5-6 years ago, we have seen quite a bit of biomass power plant going into receivership, unfortunately. And also, as I mentioned before, the solar PV, the cost has been going low all the way, and it has dominated the IE generation in Malaysia. This is, for example, a chart that you can see that over the last couple of years, PV is become dominant while the solid biomass is declining. Okay, so that is unfortunately the reality for Malaysia. However, the right end of the situation is that there have been a lot of exports of biomass from PKS, palm kernel shell, wood pellets, mainly to Japan, South Korea, China. And because the main key driver is these countries are going into their green renewable energy. So inevitably, we become an exporter of the biomass energy. All right. And you can see from the statistic here provided by our biomass hub called South Point Biomass Logistics, that over the couple of years, there has been increase in the export. But we are not a big player yet. I mean, compared to Thailand and Vietnam, in terms of the wood, we are still not a very big player. But there is a lot of export going on. We have our biomass logistic hub, which is owned by a private port here in Malaysia, in Port Klang. And there's a big open yard warehouse to house this. As you can see, a lot of pictures here. So if any of you in ASEAN or globally is interested to look into the biomass exports, this is the place you need to go to find out more from them. So you have internal and external warehousing, all right? Now, the other thing that's happening is that we have also observed that the demand from the local industry for biomass power, bioenergy, not for power generation, but for the generation of heat and steam, seems to have picked up over the last couple of years. I think there's a lot of reason for that. One is, of course, a lot of the industry plants, they were using liquefied natural gas, LNG. They see that the cost is going up. So they decided they want to switch into the use of biomass, or at least the mix of both, so to give them the flexibility in the energy costs. On top of that, some of the larger multinationals, larger investment, public listed company, they may source for sustainability linked fund that requires them to use biomass rather than using fossil fuel. So this is the trend that we are seeing, and Malaysia now we are producing more rubber gloves because of the pandemic, and you see a lot of bioenergy plant going online for industry demand. The other one is liquid biofuel. Of course, we have our palm biodiesel, and you also have a used cooking oil. For our liquid biofuel, we already have a program on what we call the National Biodiesel Program, which we hope by 2025 we want to go to B20. All right. However, the latest news is that because of the pandemic and the government coffers are not as well, because all has been used for vaccination and COVID, there will be a delay in that. Probably it will drag to another 2-3 years down the road. Okay, but the program is in place, generally speaking. All right. In terms of the export, we do have an export of the biodiesel, typically to Singapore, to Europe, but over the years also we have seen more and more demand from the domestic side of it. Okay, so you can see that for example, for used cooking oil, we are considered a small player. There are still few players here that I can name, Vans, Meva, Fat Hopes, and mostly at the export market to Singapore. I think is to this biodiesel plant called Neste in Singapore, some to Netherlands as well. We are also importing some of these used cooking oil from outside as well, for example, Indonesia and China. So we will see that there will be more and more local use of the liquid biofuel. Biogas is also interesting. Also, again, mostly from palm oil effluent, which you can capture the gas and use it for power generation. We also have landfill gas, a few projects. And recently, there have been some development in the biogas upgrading into bio-CNG. As you can see in this chart, which I repeat just now, you can see that the component of biogas for RE is also increasing for power generation as well to feed to the grid, right? In terms of bio-CNG, we also see that there have been some pilot trials to convert the biogas to upgrade and pressurize into bio-CNG for the domestic market, because we already have some of our vehicles using liquefied natural gas, and there have been talks of exporting the bio-CNG. Now, if you can brand or tag this bio-CNG as a non-fossil based, it may have premium for sustainable bioenergy production. So in general, the status of bioenergy in Malaysia is that we have seen there's an increasing consumption of bio-based resources for domestic rather than for power generation. Okay, we believe this will go on as there are more and more funding that are related to low carbon and sustainability financing. We will see that more factories, more industry, especially the one that uses a lot of energy, will switch to biomass as part of their energy mix itself. We see there's opportunity for conversion technologies that will improve the efficiency of the conversion of the biogas biomass into whether it's steam or heat. For example, fluidized bed technology, because currently a lot of boilers are still quite traditional in that sense, right? Now, in terms of the challenges, we still have our supply chain is still not very mature. There is a lack of dedicated logistics in terms of the transportation. We don't have a commodity market where people can trade biomass product openly, and there is no like trading contracts. So if you need to buy biomass from a generator, you have to have a lot of negotiation, non-standard contracts. So it actually slows down the adoption into the market. And also a lot of the players in the value chain or in the supply chain, the lack of understanding and requirement of the sustainability requirements, because if you want to supply your biomass to projects that are funded by green funding, for example, they need to understand what is required and make sure they can source from sustainable sources. So this is some of the challenges that we have seen happening in Malaysia. Okay, so I guess that's a quick one we can give for the short time. Hopefully that there'll be more opportunities. If you want to contact me further, just look me up in the LinkedIn, or you can ask the organizer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tank Pokmun. I think you kindly shine logistic and also status of the how bioenergy was utilized in Malaysia, especially touching upon a very important point regarding the facility for logistic export and as well as the biofuel they use for the from palm oil. So I will delay a question till the end of the Q&A session. So thanks very much. Without further ado, next, may I invite Professor Pham Phu Thuyen from Hanoi University of Science and Technology, Vietnam, to give us a presentation on status and outlook of bioenergy in Vietnam. So, Professor Thuyen, the floor is yours.
Hello. Good afternoon, Dr. Nuval. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes. Can you turn on your video too, please?
Yes. So can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Nuval, and thank you all of you for giving me a chance to share with you about some information about the status and outlook of bioenergy in Vietnam. So I would like to start with general information about the total primary energy supply in Vietnam. So as you know, Vietnam has a large range of domestic primary energy sources, such as crude oil, coal, natural gas, and hydropower, which have play an important role in ensuring energy security for economic development. So in 2019, the TPES of Vietnam was about 90,000 KTOE, which increased about 11% as compared to 2018. Meanwhile, for the whole period from 2011 to 2019, the average growth rate is about 6.1% per year, with very high growth rate with coal, that is about 13% per year, and the renewable is about 10.5% per year. And so in 2010, the coal only accounted for about 28% of the total, but you can see it's increased quite fast. In 2018, the coal contribute up to 44%, and in 2019 it contribute up to 50% in the total TPES. Renewable energy with hydropower at the core also saw an increase in the structure from 11% in 2010 to 18.4% in 2018, and a little bit down to 15.8% in 2019. For energy import and export balance is the period 2010 to 2019. So it can be seen that the energy export trends seem to be decrease trends in recent year, and the energy import trends increase. So year 2015 is the year that Vietnam become a net energy importer after being the energy exporter for a long time. So in aspect of final energy consumption, so it's real with the average rate about 4% from 44,000 KTOE in 2010 to 62,000 KTOE in 2019. And the most obvious is a continuously increasing share of electricity consumption that is representing the transition from other fuel to the electricity. And also the share of renewable energy also increased from about 7% in in 2010 to about 8.6% in 2019. So the economic growth also resulting in an increase in energy consumption. And during the period of 27 to 2017, the growth rate of the total final energy consumption about 4%. And the Vietnam's main drives for energy consumption growth include the industrial growth, resident energy consumption, and the level of the transportation mechanization. So the trend shows that the industrial sector contribute largest increasing with 9.3% per year, and followed by the commercial sector and the transport sector. So Vietnam have a quite high potential for renewable energy, including hydro, solar, wind, biomass, and waste. Biomass and hydropower have been the main type of renewable energy in Vietnam up to now. In 2017, the biomass and hydropower account for approximately 51% and 49% respectively, while solar and wind account for very small amount in TPES. However, since 2019, many solar and wind power plants have come into operation. So therefore, they contribute a significant portion in electricity production. So we can see here the share of produced electricity from the solar, wind, and biomass. That's the first 4 months of 2021 is about 11.8%. This contribute quite significant portion. And in aspect of biofuels, in Vietnam, only bioethanol has been used as commercial fuel in the form of blending gasoline and bioethanol, with the concentration of bioethanol is 5%. That's called E5. And E5 RON 92 has replaced gasoline RON 92 over countries since 2018. And at the same time, gasoline RON 95 is still available. So let's come to biomass. There are 4 main types of biomass resource, including crop harvesting and processing residue. For example, the rice straw, rice husk, or baggage from sugar mill. So with the reserve approximately 80 million tons per year. So the second sources is livestock residue, approximately 40 million tons per year. The third is the forestry byproduct, including the artificial forest, scattered trees, sawdust, and also paper processing industry, with reserve about 34 million tons per year. And the last one, the municipal solid waste, with a reserve approximately about 14 million tons per year. So here the information about the current biomass power plant in Vietnam. In Vietnam now, the power plants using biomass independently seem not really available yet. And now there are about 35 sugar mills, of which 34 sugar mills produce electricity from the baggage-based combined heat and power generation plant, with total capacity of approximately 500 megawatts. But a portion of this is used for sugar mill operation, and only about 175 megawatts connected to grid in 2019. And so far there are 10 plants using rice husk with the average capacity is 10 megawatt per plant, and one plant using wood with a capacity about 7 megawatt are proposed and constructing. Most of the MSW treatment plant is mainly the garbage, very low energy recovery efficiency, and only some plant produce electricity with capacity from 1.5 to 7.5 megawatt. However, now there are quite big plants called Waste-to Energy plant in Hanoi, which is nearly complete and is going to operate in the near future. So its capacity is about 75 megawatt. So this plant is in southern province, Hanoi. For bioethanol production plants, there are 7 plants and projects, but due to the low demand in bioethanol consumption, currently there are only 2 plants are operating to produce bioethanol to supply the biofuel for E5 planting. And the current biogas production, Vietnam have a tropical climate, so it's very suitable for biogas production. So far, there have been about 465,000 biogas plants, of which 450,000 plants are at household scale. It is small scale, and the average volumes about 10 cubic meter, and the other plants are at farm and industrial level with the average volume of 500 cubic meter to 2,000 cubic meter. Here, some pictures show very simple reactor biogas at household scale, let's say small scale, and some technology applied for the farm and industrial level, maybe including the lagoon or park glow or some other technology. And biogas produced is mainly used for cooking, heating, and lighting at household and farm level, or can be used to replace fuel and oil or coal at the industrial level. So concerning biofuel, the main feedstock for ethanol production in Vietnam is cassava. The cassava growing area nationwide is about 550,000 hectares, and cassava production reach 10 million tons per year. It is in 2019, and the target will be 16.5 million tons in 2030 for starch processing, export, and biofuel production serving food needs. Also include domestic and export, as well as feedstock for ethanol production. Even though the roadmap for application for ethanol gasoline blend were issued, and there are several policies to promote the utilization of the blend. However, in some localities, customers still ignore E5 fuel. So due to which dissemination on the new energy and the lack of retail station and difficult production and distribution. So actually, it was not until January 2018. So gasoline RON 92 has been banned, and only E5 RON 92 and gasoline RON 95 have been produced and available for purchase so far. So here in 2018, the E5 RON 92 consumption increased up to about 3 million cubic meter that contribute more or less 42% of the total gasoline consumption. Ethanol production therefore increased significantly in 2018, with a value of about nearly 160,000 cubic meter. In 2019, however, the E5 consumption tend to a bit decrease, so accounting for approximately 38% of the total gasoline consumption, and it also leads to reduced bioethanol production just a bit. So based on the Vietnam renewable energy development strategy, so biofuels are expected to be produced approximately from 150,000 GOE in 2015 to about 800,000 GOE in 2020. That can contribute 5% of fuel demand in the transportation sector, and up to 3.7 million GOE contribute to 13% of fuel demand. And by 2015, the biofuel produced would be 10.5 million GOE and contribute to 25% of fuel demand. And the outlook of bioenergy potential and utilization. Look at the history and forecast of the bioenergy potential. It can be seen that there is quite high bioenergy potential in Vietnam, with the estimation of about 70 million GOE in 2030. And in 2050, it can be nearly 90 million GOE. So three main components of the bioenergy is firewood, agriculture byproduct, and the energy crop. However, the current bioenergy that can be utilized still low, only about 26% in 2020. And it is expected that the bioenergy utilized will be 46% in 2030 and will be 70% in 2050. So concerning the plan to use bioenergy for electricity, heat, and biofuel production. So based on the Vietnam's renewable energy development strategy, the total bioenergy mass use will increase from 14 million GOE in 2015, will be increased to 16 million GOE in 2020 and 32 million GOE in 2030 and up to 62.5 million GOE and in 2050. So it also can be seen that in the past, the bioenergy mainly used for heat production up to 96%. However, this share will decrease, and the share of bioenergy for electricity and biofuel production increase year by year. So the target is that by 2050, the share of bioenergy for electricity, heat, and biofuel production will be 31%, approximately 37%, and 32% respectively. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Thuyen, for kindly sharing the status of the bioenergy in Vietnam. I think we can see clearly that the bioenergy will start to shift, from the heat generation sector into the electricity generation as well as the transportation sector. And I think we will talk. Thank you very much. So I think we can have a bit of question at the end. So next, may I moving on to introduce Professor Dr. Sunirat Fukuda from the JGC community to share with us about the status and outlook of bioenergy in Thailand. So please, Professor Sunirat.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nuwong. I would like to share my screen. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and good morning for somebody who's on the opposite side of the globe. I'm Sunirat Fukuda from the Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment, King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, Bangkok, Thailand. And today I'm going to present on the status and outlook of bioenergy in Thailand. Okay, when we talk about the bioenergy, we start to talk first about the biomass potential. And Thailand is an agricultural country, so as you can see that from the Thailand, the map of Thailand here on the left side, and you can see the plantation area in Thailand. You can see a lot of in the yellow and the orange color is the rice, sugarcane, cassava, and in the south of Thailand is more for the para rubber and oil palm. So derived from this become a lot of biomass in form of wood waste or agricultural waste. So each year the abundant waste are generated, and most of them are used for the energy generation already, but still some are underutilized. And also we have some potential fast-growing trees. So when we look at statistics, like in 2017, the generation capacity is in million ton is 200 and almost 300 million ton, but there are still some remaining, which is 160 million ton, and this include the rice straw, cane tops and leaves, corn leaves and trunks, and palm, like in Malaysia, palm, EFB, frond, and the trunk, and also now people start to try to utilize the rubber wood, the root. So for the production and utilization of bioenergy in Thailand, we use for the heat and power production, mainly by the direct combustion. In industry, they do the combined heat and power, like in the sugar, in the palm oil industry. We also have a number of the small power producer and very small power producer power plants, or we call SPP and VSPP. And these they sell the power to the grid, and for the biomass is 1,700 megawatt installation, and for the biogas is 300 megawatt installation. The biomass is also used to co-fire with coal in industrial boilers. So this is, for example, in the cement industry, in the paper industry. So apart from the direct combustion, heat and power is also generated from the anaerobic digestion of organic waste. So mainly is the wastewater from industry, from the livestock farm. And now there are more and more the mixing of lignocellulosic materials with the wastewater for the anaerobic digestion. So the popular one is the Napier grass. In terms of transport fuels, Thailand produces bioethanol and biodiesel. The bioethanol is mainly from molasses and cassava. The molasses is about 2/3 and 1/3 is from cassava, and is blended with gasoline. The mandate is the E10, which is the 10% blend, but the blend up to E85 is also available in the stations, petrol stations. For the biodiesel, or we call the B100, is mainly from palm oil for Thailand, and is blended with diesel. For the mandatory selling is the B10, but it's also available at the B7. And recently, the Ministry of Energy have changed the name of B10 and B7. So B10 is called the diesel as the commercial name, and B7 is called the diesel B7. So when you come to Thailand and want to fill up your petrol, so you must check that when we say diesel is a B10. And another thing, apart from the heat and power, the liquid biofuels for transport sector, we also produce lots and lots more of the biomass pellets. So mainly is the wood pellets from the fast growing trees and rubber wood sawdust. Yeah, because they have to comply with the standard for export to the customers. But nowadays there are the attempt to commercialize the agricultural pellets, what we call the green pellets or white pellets, and also the black pellets or the torrefied pellets. So for the pellets is used also for domestic industry, like in the industry that is normally using the expensive fossil fuels like the LPG. They can change to the biomass pellets with the minor modification of the burner. So this is also one of the scheme that the government promote, which I will show an example later. But another part is for the export. So as I mentioned, the commodity can be the white and the black pellets. And in Thailand, in the year 2019, the export of the white pellet is around the 300,000 ton, which is increasing, but still not as much, not as many as in Vietnam. So for the status and the target, we have the Alternative Energy Development Plan, or AEDP 2018, officially announced end of last year. So the target is in 2037. So as you can see, the gray bar is the install capacity in 2018, and the pink one is the target in 2037. Yeah, so this is just some number, but I would like to stress here that the Thai government is still see the potential of the biomass and bioenergy. So as you can see, for the power, the capacity will almost double the capacity in 2018, as well as the biogas, the municipal solid waste, and as well as for the heat, yeah, from the biomass. And we also, the government also look at the compressed biogas as well. So by the biogas upgrading, yeah. And for the liquid fuels, we have the bioethanol, biodiesel. So the target is quite challenging, about double for both. And also there's a little bit of target on the pyrolysis oil as well. Yeah, so the biomass is still one of the major renewable energy resource, together with the solar power. So when we look at the government incentive for the bioenergy, like this one in terms of the power, the government has announced this the feed-in tariff for the biomass and for the biogas. So for biomass, there's two scales, below 3 and more than 3. And for the biogas is for the energy crops from the biogas production from the energy crops, but the mixing with waste with less than 25% is still allowed, in order to benefit from this feed-in tariff scheme. And for the premium will be given to the power plants in the specially allocated zone, which is mainly in the south of Thailand. Okay, so apart from all the deployment and the targets and everything, the Thai government is also look at the sustainability issues. The Thai government also promote the new economic model for the inclusive and sustainable growth, which is called the BCG, or the Bio-Circular Green Economy. So this is to promote the sustainable development and also taking care of the grassroots, which is like the farmers who supply the biomass. Yeah, and also another strategy is on the biofuels and biochemicals, which is one of the 10 new S-curve industry of Thailand. So in the next few slides, I will show you some of the strategic action plans and the projects related to the bioenergy. So including the fuel switching, as I mentioned earlier, from the fossil fuels to the biomass pellets, and the community-based biomass power plant, the energy production from napier grass, and also the reduction of open burning in the case of sugarcane leaf. So first of all, the fuel switching. So this is the pilot project by the Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency under the Ministry of Energy to provide the support for the burner modification in the factories who use the fossil fuels like the LPG, diesel, or the heavy fuel oil to change to the biomass pellets. So the support is 30% of the investment cost, but less than 2 million baht. So this one is one of the success cases in Lamphun province, and they originally they used the LPG, and then when they changed to the biomass pellets, they could reduce the fuel cost by the 43%. So this, when we calculate the payback period, without the support, is the payback period is 8 months, which is short enough, but with the support, they can reduce the payback period to 6 months. The next one is on the community-based biomass power plant. So this is the the policy for the local economy with the objective to increase the community's quality of life and build the energy security. So this is a pilot project to procure electricity from community-based VSPP power plant. Normally the VSPP is below 10 megawatt, but in this project is they have the more specific capacity. So the power plants can be the biomass power plant or biogas. The total of each is 75 megawatt, but each one for the biomass must be less than 6 megawatt, and for the biogas is less than 3 megawatt. And another requirement for this is that the power plant project must ensure the benefit to the local community. So preferably the use of the locally available fuels where the farmer can participate and by supplying the fuels and can get the at the guaranteed price. And also the community must have the ownership, the 10% ownership where they can share the profit. And so, but it must be done, the contract must be done with the community enterprise or the community enterprise network. The energy from Napier grass. So as you all know that the Napier grass is a fast growing crop, and the yield is can vary between 375 to 625 tons per hectare per year, and the harvesting period is only 45 to 60 days. So the Napier grass can be used for the energy production in many ways. One is the electricity to domestic grid. So this is used as a fuel like other agricultural waste, or it can be pelletized into the better quality fuels for the exporting. So this is also, again, is similar to the other agricultural waste. And the last one is a compressed biogas. Because the Napier grass has a very high moisture content, so and also with the shorter harvest period, so it's easier to for the fermentation to produce a biogas. And then with the upgrading of the biogas, we can produce the what we call the CBG and use in some station. And when we look at the methane yields, it's also quite promising, 190 to 270 cubic meter per ton of volatile solid for the case of the 45-day grass. Yeah. So this is the example of the Energy Research Institute of the Chiang Mai University that they do this CBG project. And the last one is on the reduction of biomass open burning. So as the PM 2.5 is the problem in many countries, and this one of the reason is from the biomass open burning. In the case of sugarcane leaf, sometimes the farmer just burn the tops and leaf before the manual harvesting, and this caused the environmental problems. So if we change to the machine harvesting, so in that case there is no burning, and at the same time the biomass is obtained. So this can be this can create the value addition to the biomass that has otherwise will be burned. So in Thailand, the Thai government just announced the no burning policy to reduce the PM 2.5, and also the sugar factories have the price incentive for the unburned cane. Yeah, so they, without burning, they get more for the cane to the factory. And also we can increase the mix of cane leaves in the boiler, but some modification may be needed because the cane leaf contains some unwanted species like the chlorine. Yeah. So my last slide is on the future of the bioenergy. So this is just to cap up what I already mentioned. The government promote the biomass utilization, as you can see in the AEDP, and the private sector turns to use more and more biomass. So this is more from the international pressure on renewable energy and something. More biomass utilization by various technologies, as I mentioned. Sustainable supply chain needed. So we have the so we won't have to encounter the lack of the biomass, which is seasonal. And lastly is the sustainable bioeconomy. So we have to concern all the stakeholders along the supply chain as well. Yeah. And okay, thank you very much for your kind attention. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Sunirat, for kindly sharing the status in Thailand. I think we can hear that in Thailand, we have been exploring many aspects of the bioenergy utilization, as well as I think to go with the new theme under the BCG, which stands for bioeconomy, circular economy, and green economy. So we'll leave some questions until the end. So last but not least, may I invite the last speaker for this session is Professor Horst from Technical University of Applied Science in Germany, and it's very glad to have you across the globe, and you will be sharing the status and outlook of bioenergy in Germany. The floor is yours, Professor Horst, please.
Moment. Do you see the first slide?
Not yet.
Not yet. Moment. Bildschirm freigeben. Does it work now?
Yes, make it full screen and the
yes, I just try to. Yes. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your kind invitation. I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak about the topic status and outlook of bioenergy in Germany. And this already gives the main structure to what I intend to present, status and outlook. This is given here. There are 7 chapters. That's a lot, but I will show this chart with the beginning of each chapter. I would like to give you a hint. This topic, bioenergy, developed detailed in Germany since more than 30 years. Some topics contain a lot of information and experiences we have made meanwhile. So the focus has to be to the most important ones in the short time given. But for further information, of course, I'm available during question and answers and by my email address given in the end of my presentation. Let's start with German biomass resources, the types. Because of time reasons, I think it is better if I jump those slides. If there are any questions, please post them afterwards. I just can tell you there is no plant in Central Europe that can compete with your Napier grass as presented by Professor Sunirat just now. There is no one. Be happy, the yields in Southeast Asia are much, much higher than those in Germany. We have to speak about that because Germany came to a saturation concerning biomass because of the availability. Chapter 2, some statistics with the contribution of biomass. This shows the ultimate energy coverage. We see the well-known ones: ambient heat, solar thermal, photovoltaics, wind, and hydro. And in those charts, always in green, we can see biomass, the different targets for power generation, for mobility, and for heat generation. And this contribution sums up to more than 50% meanwhile. Now let's have a look at the power generation. All data are for 2020 given in those statistics. I forgot to tell you. Once again, the other renewables, and once again, green, the contribution of biomass to the power generation is 20% meanwhile. Useful heat and chill generation. We have the renewable solar thermal and those two geothermal ones. And we can see from this, those are the different, let's say, types of biomass or solid states of biomass, and they sum up to 85% in Germany, meanwhile. In chapter 3, I would like to speak a little bit about main technologies for biomass energy conversion to useful energies. And I would like to show it with the examples for community-based power plants. I have been asked for that. First, wood combustion. There are two facts. The total forest area in Germany is 24 million hectares. 1 hectare, for those that are not forestry orientated, is 10,000 square meters. And private owners have about 50% of the total forest area. This is important to know. Because of low prices on the wood market, private owners established regional forestry communities. Those communities are financing wood-fired CHPs and operating them to selling power to the public grid. This is no problem in Germany. I will speak about that in chapter 5 afterwards. And heat respectively chill to the community. It cannot be transferred to longer distances, as we know. So the nearby community is important. Contract periods normally are 10-year plus, and there is a price escalation clause, of course, too. As an example, I would like to show you the tree generation realized in a Bavarian town north of Munich, having 23,000 inhabitants. There is a hospital, there is a big office building, and this is something special. There is a famous baby food production company. And inside this town, as can be seen here in this chart, there is meanwhile a heat respectively chill grid with a length of 19 kilometers. Chill is also needed by the food production. And this is something special for this company. There is a steam pipe, 180 degrees centigrade for sterilization reasons. And this small photo shows the putting those pipes into the streets in this town, the red lines. This is the CCHP station located over there. We'll show you a photo afterwards. It could be a biogas plant too. And this has been awarded in 2011 by the United Nations, this project. This photo shows us these wood-fired power plants, some characteristics. Fuel is natural wood and sawmill residues. Nominal power 6 megawatt electric, RTI is 27 megawatt, and the total efficiency degree, and this is remarkable, is bigger than 95% because of flue gas condensation that is used over there. One possibility to increase efficiency degrees. Now let's have a look at biogas plants. Two more facts. Since World War II, a lot of German farmers had to give up. The tendency is the bigger the farm, the higher the productivity, but there is an escape. Farmers changed to energy crop production, investing, this is maize, mostly maize with us, investing in private-owned biogas plants and mostly operating them selling once again power and heat, respectively chill. I would like to sum up. For those two community-based plant types, the highest risk for the plant economy, as we know, is the price for the wood, respectively substrate, is its increase. And this can be much better buffered if you have those fuels by yourself. Second, it has been shown that there is a successful transformation from farmers, respectively forestry men, to energy deliverers. This means conservation of working places in rural areas. This is a big problem, and value creation over there. This photo shows as an example an up-to-grade biogas plant in Germany with 700 kilowatt electric. Those are the two fermenters. There is the feedstock storage silo that can be much, much smaller in Southeast Asia. This is an automatic feedstock dosage 24/7. This is the powerhouse, and this is the digestate and biogas storage device. This diagram shows the, I call it, success story of the biogas plants in Germany, starting in 1992 with about 140 plants, and meanwhile we have 9,500. The blue bars is the number of the biogas plants, and this brown-red curve shows the installed electric capacity in megawatt electric. And from this, we can see those almost 10,000 biogas plants produce 5,000 megawatt electric in the recent years. From those numbers, we can calculate an average plant capacity. Data also from 2020 of more than 500 kilowatt electric. And the real plant performance is about 400 kilowatt. If you take those 9,500, they are sufficient to cover the power demand of almost 10 million German households. I think this is an interesting number. And Germany is the first, number one in Europe, followed by Italy. Some hints on economics. I think I don't have to mention this. Biomass has, in comparison to fossil fuels, some disadvantages. I just want to illustrate with those two pictures. A maize field is no oil field. From this are deriving two conclusions. Biomass has to face some economical disadvantages. We have to be true. But biomass is the ideal fuel for decentralized CHPs, and I think this is the power generation of the future. But they have a disadvantage because of the heat consumers. They are limited. They cannot be very big, so there is a disadvantage of size for biomass fuel plants in comparison to the fossil fuel ones. The question is how to compensate those disadvantages. Let's see. Governmental renewable energy support. There is a Renewable Energy Act in Germany since 1991. It has been adapted 8 times, meanwhile, to changing boundary conditions and as an instrument to steer the GHG reduction targets. This act focused first to power generation only. It has been expanded to heat, respectively chill creation, and efficiency decree improvement. I will show you afterwards. I would like to give you a hint. Wind power does not need any support anymore. The 10 megawatt electric generation has been introduced. They can compete without support with the fossil fuel power plants. And PV will come soon. The prices, the feed-in tariffs for PV are declining each month. They will be soon 0. The target is to replace fossil fuels, above all coal and atomic energy, by renewable energies. And I would like to mention 4 characteristics in this context. This act regulates the preferred power input to the public grid. Grid operators have to accept renewable energies in each place in Germany. And there is a minimum kilowatt-hour price guarantee for 20 years. And this is lowering the risks of the investors dramatically. Support prices depend on the commissioning date of the plant, of its size. The bigger, the lower the price. I will show you in one of the next charts, or the next chart. The technology used, because if you have a sophisticated technology, if you're courageous, you get a so-called technology bonus. And standards like efficiency degrees, of course, have to be fulfilled, otherwise no support. This act refers to private owners, like the one family house here covered with the PV panels, as well as companies. The basic price is given in euro cent per kilowatt hour. 1 euro cent is about 1/3 of the baht. This table shows us the maximum electrical performance ranging from 0 to 20 megawatt electric. And those are the Renewable Energy Acts. Let's focus to the last one from 2012. And we can see easily that with increasing size of the plant, this price, the basic price, is minimizing. And I would like to mention the big ones need to have CHP, otherwise they will not get any governmental support. Now let's speak about the bonuses. They can sum up to maximum 18 euro cent per kilowatt hour for the use of innovative technologies. Biogas plants, for example, liquid manure, CHP, or the ORC process. But we have to compare with fossil-fired power plants, respectively atomic ones. The power generation price of those plants is less than 4 euro cent per kilowatt hour. And the question is, who pays for the difference? And the answer is a quite easy one: each German grid power user, private ones as well as companies. I will show in the next chart the price to be paid for the increase of the renewable energy share to the total energy consumption. In the past, there have been two instruments. One is the Renewable Energy Act apportionment, I will show in the next slide, and the well-known CO2 certificates. Since January this year, we have additionally in Germany a so-called CO2 tax. This tax is fixed to 25 euro. Once again, the conversion rate given here between euro and baht per ton of CO2, and it's planned to be increased to 55 euro in 2025. This is the development of this Renewable Energy Act apportionment. Starting, it's once again in euro cent per kilowatt hour, starting 2003 until 2014. And we can see the increase from 0.4 to 6.2. If the gap would be closed completely with this apportionment, the price meanwhile would be, this apportionment would be 9.6 euro cent in this year. This is equivalent to 10 billion euro per year, and this is nationally covered to have a 6.5 euro cent cap to prevent extremely high power prices. Yeah, and for power-intensive industries, there are reductions to keep international competitiveness, of course. Now let's have a look into the future. The German target concerning GHG emissions neutrality and the boundary conditions for. There is a German climate protection law from 2019 targeting neutrality until 2050. In the last few weeks, this target has been reduced to 2045. We have elections this year in Germany. And some facts about this energy transition. Nuclear energy phases out until end of next year. This is not very far. Coal is intended to phase out until latest 2035. Germany is mostly coal-based. And in discussion is the withdrawal date from the combustion engines for mobility. Framework is supply security, affordability. I would like to make a question mark behind affordability in future, and competitiveness. Fact is, Germany has, except our expensive coal, a big lack of raw materials. About 75% of the primary energy has to be imported, and this means dependence from abroad. And conclusion is, those targets are a tremendous challenge for scientists, engineers, business people, as well as the German taxpayers. I forgot to mention in this context, dependence. The higher the share of the renewables, the less the dependence from abroad. Last chapter, roadmap to target achievement. We have to achieve it. Presupposition, no lowering of life standard. There are three main ways to replace fossils by renewables. We have spoken about energy saving. This is the best energy we have, for example, to replace 10,000s, 100,000s of compression chillers by district heating, respectively chilling in Southeast Asia. I have shown with the example of this town, Pfaffenhofen. And this is a permanent task of engineers to increase the efficiency decrease by the introduction of CHPs or by sector coupling. Those numbers are given for up-to-date efficiency decrease of sophisticated plants. Yes, biomass is limited in Germany, as I would have mentioned in the first chapter. So we have to increase the efficiency decrease. I would like to do a presupposition. There should be no competition between food and energy crop production. Food, of course, has to have priority. Yes, we have spoken about this. A big increase of the power generation by biomass use cannot be expected anymore in Germany. You have seen that the number of the biogas plants kept almost saturated with 10,000 plants in Germany. In future, we have to increase the efficiency decrease. One example I would like to show you here. There is an energy farmer I consulted. He erected 3 of those boxes. Those are wood chips, and he is using the excess heat of his biogas plant for the drying of the wood chips. He is doing this in commission. The farmers bring the wood chips and the wet ones, and they take off the dry ones. Drying, as we know, means increase of the LHV. And this is a contribution too. And we would like to show you something about community-based power plants, virtual power plants as an example. There is the local energy supplier for the town of Rosenheim, south of Munich, by the way, the town where the university is located. This supplier offered a platform with up to now 175 biogas plants involved, with more than 80 megawatt electric, building up such a CVPP. This shows very shortly the principle. There are the input variables like weather, wind, for example. There will be no wind power. There is a power demand. There is a heat demand, for example. All this goes into a planning and control unit. This is a very important office, and from this office, they steer those 170 biogas plants to the best time for the best price. For example, they deliver control energy to cover the peaks, or they are looking even to tomorrow because there is a weather forecast. This successful cooperation is intended to be expanded to PV plants and accumulator systems of private houses too. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Horst. I think we learned a lot from the course of globe that I think even though bioenergy has some disadvantages like clumsy,
Yes.
bigger, but also I think in Germany you have put it into for the energy transition, especially I think we are interesting to learn that 85% of the heat and chill power is actually coming from the biopellet, biomass energy,
Yes.
and also as well as the last example that you show about the virtual power plant is actually coming from the community biogas. I think that's very interesting. And I think for me, usually when we talk about virtual power plant, people think about solar rooftop, those kind of thing. But I think this is a good
Yes.
example that could be put to use, I think, in the context of ASEAN and also as well as across the globe. I think now we come to the last Q&A session. So I think we can have, I think, a few questions. I'm sorry that the question the time is taking a lot longer because as we planned, each excellent speaker has many things to share with the audience online. So I think let's just maybe wrap up with a few questions. I think there are some specific questions that I'd like to pick up. I think first, maybe question from Mr. Tang. I think regarding your presentation about the palm, industry in Malaysia. I think you have any example of the power plant that using palm bushes, and I think the anti-food bunch since it has a lot available over there. Can you please comment on that, please?
Okay. In Malaysia, most of the biomass power plants are set up by the plantation companies. Some of the more well-known plantation companies like Felda, they have a biomass power plant in the Peninsular Malaysia. There's another one called TSH, which is based in Sabah. There's also another one, IOI, also based in Sabah. The main reason is because the biomass raw material belongs to the plantation. So it makes sense for them to use those biomass to generate their electricity. In the past, there have been some power plants who tried to purchase the EFB, and it didn't went very well because they couldn't get a long-term contract and the cost is too expensive. So it goes back to the situation where the plantation owner and the biomass power plant owner are under the same entity.
Thank you for your response. May I move on? Next question will be addressed to Professor Sumirat. I think you mentioned regarding the pellet and also how they were utilized in Thailand. I think there one of the question whether the technology that apply for the conversion of pellet for municipal solid waste to energy, does it use RDF or how can you comment on that, please?
Okay. I think I'm not sure about the question because the question is first is on the pellets and how the biomass pellets is used to replace the fossil fuels like the LPG, and that is like we need to do the change of the some modification of the burner so that the solid biofuels can be used instead of the gaseous fuel. But another question is on the RDF or refuse derived fuels. That is a term that in Thailand we use for the densified fuels produced from the municipal solid waste, and that is already implemented. The production and utilization is already implemented in Thailand, more in the cement industry because they can burn the a bit dirty fuels at the high temperature, so that is better for the pollution. And but now there are also the utilization of the RDF produced from municipal solid waste for the power plant now is increasing, even though it's still not so many. Yes. Okay.
I see. Thank you very much for sharing the information. And the next question can turn to Professor Tuyan. I think in general, as you can show clearly that the future bioenergy will be switching, from heat into the electricity and biofuel for transportation. Can you comment on your role as a researcher and how you can push forward this policy and also this trend that you show at the end of your presentation, please? Can you comment on that?
Okay. So one of the challenges for biomass utilization in Vietnam now, also the price the biomass produce electricity, and the prime mechanism or the support from the government to encourage the biomass produce electricity is still low, and also the high cost for investing in the biomass power plant. So it's maybe needs some maybe stronger support from the government. And also based on the biomass strategy of the government, we also try to utilize or to increase the efficiency of biomass conversion. Now it's still low, and we try to utilize whole of biomass and convert whole of biomass to electricity or heat or useful energy. But now we just utilize maybe 40%. Now currently just 26%, as I saw in the slide. But in the future we will increase the percentage of the biomass utilization. And actually, of course, to apply more biomass, it's necessary to have a stronger support from the government. The support for also a private investor, not only the governmental investor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I think to turn to Professor Horst. I think as Professor Tuyen mentioned that I think government role is very important. I think we can see from your slide that I think German starts since 1991. I think that's way almost like 20 years ago. I think with the history of trying to encourage the clean energy, and of course I think you can show by numbers that significant percentage of heat and chill power is actually coming from the bioenergy. Now, one thing that you show towards the last slide, I think regarding the new tax, CO2 tax, I think about the 25 euro per ton CO2, and that actually is coming up this year. I think that's also for me a new knowledge that I think that has been imposed on how German energy would transform itself into a more like a sustainable goal of reducing greenhouse gas emission. Do you think that law will particularly boost up the use of bioenergy, and also and how would that be also influencing those other like clean technology as well as bioenergy in existing?
Yes, this is an interesting question, if I understood you right, because the transmission quality is not the best one. Hopefully you can understand me better. This new tax that has started January this year with the 25 euro for ton CO2 emitted is of course supporting all renewable energies, because it is specific for them not to contribute to the CO2 emissions. So if you increase, and of course, an operator of a fossil-fired power plant has to increase its price if the costs will be higher for him. In the very end, the consumers have to pay for. And so this is definitely a support for all renewables, inclusive biomass too. I think this has been your question. By the way, Germany in this concern is not the first one. I had it on my slide. Sweden already more than 10 years ago introduced a similar tax on CO2, and their price is about factor 4 or 5 higher, meanwhile, today, this year, than the one that has to be paid in Germany. So Sweden in this concern has started much, much earlier, and the prices are much higher, and Sweden has survived until now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think for your kind comment, I think we also maybe learn a bit like how in the European region, I think you start thinking about this a bit very earlier than in our ASEAN region. Thank you very much for kindly sharing the information.
It's a pleasure to me.
Now, I think there are also last questions just coming in. I think maybe regarding Professor Tuyen. I think the question would be that I think given that Vietnam has a lot of pig farm, and now of course maybe with the growth of the emerging economy, then the small pig farm could be could turn into a big, like commercial farm. Then about the biogas utilization and waste treatment, I think now reducing the water from pig farm and recycle the water is important. But however, the concentration of the sludge and also the high amount of ammonia in sludge waste, maybe that could be something that have to be carefully choose for the biogas digester. I think I can Professor Tugen comment on that, please.
Okay, I'm not really sure about the content of your question, but as I know, and I also show in my presentation, is that the biogas produced in Vietnam now is mainly used for cooking, for lighting, for normally for resident use purpose, and so far there are some small biogas produce electricity from, I mean, small scale with very they convert the diesel engine to use biogas to produce electricity, but in a small scale. And I'm not really sure about the purification technology to when they use to clean biogas, and the concentration of ammonium effect. I'm sorry that I'm not really deep in or not really professional in biogas production.
Okay, no problem. Maybe we can turn to Professor Horst. I think you can comment because you shown that Germany used the largest concentration of biogas in Europe. I think the question is coming online whether the concentration of ammonia affect the yield of biogas in digester.
I know that above all, the residues of the pork production has this problem. But I know that it is not allowed anymore. This has been done in future. It is not allowed anymore to spread this animal manure just to the fields because of because of worsening the groundwater quality. This has been a big problem in Germany some dozens years ago. So this is not allowed anymore. So I think they have technologies, and there are big pork production farms. They have the technology to manage this problem. As we know, ammonia is alkalic. So if you mix acid components, and this is a special topic, to mix certain feedstocks to biogas plants, this is always good for compensation. They are available on the market because you need to have a minimum plant size that you can work economical. So there are a lot of deliverers that have problems to get rid of their organics. So there is a market for. Concerning the question, export of biomass. This is not really a topic with us because of the transport costs in Central Europe are rather high. I know a thumb rule for wood chips, not pellets, wood chips. Each transport distance being bigger than 100 kilometers is not economical anymore. So this fact from financial point of view is minimizing transports or exports of biomass to abroad. It's easy. It's something quite different with gasoline because the energy density is much, much higher.
I see. Thank you. I think maybe ask Mr. Tang to comment a bit because I think I saw in your presentation that Malaysia has, I think, a big infrastructure for exporting pellet and biomass, right? I think what do you think about constraining to use locally?
In Malaysia, the situation is a bit unique because we mainly export three types. One is wood pellets, one is wood chip, one is palm kernel shell. And first of all, in these three forms, it is quite dense in terms of the the density. So it's a bit more critical. And from what we know, a lot of the buyers from, let's say, Japan and South Korea, they are willing to pay a premium because it's related to sustainable energy generation. But I do agree that if just based on economics and financial itself, it would not be viable. In fact, in the early years, some did try to export all the way to Europe, for example, and it doesn't work. The cost is too high. But of course, there are some, like in the case of the state of Sabah, it is actually halfway from Peninsular Malaysia to say Japan and Europe, and by using the shipment, it makes sense. But again, let me caution that it has to have a certain premium because of the relationship to sustainability and so on. Yeah.
I see. Thank you very much. So I think for your comment regarding the export of the biomass, I think now I think there's no more question coming on. So I think I'd like to express sincere gratitude to all excellent speakers. I think for sharing your view, in the respective country. And I would like to hand over this forum back to Khun Wannapran, please.
Yes, so thank you very much for all the speaker. I think we over the time, but actually it's worth it because we received so many, a lot of insights on the bioenergy in implementation and technologies advancement, as well as a related policy from our speaker, either from Malaysia, Vietnam, Germany, and of course Thailand. So for the JTC, who is the co-organizer of this event, so they will be having hosting the international conference about the clean energy transitions for post-COVID residents in ASEAN during ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week event, which will be held on 14 to 16 of October 2021 at Bangkok, Thailand. So you may follow us on our social media and see any update of the information. So today is the last webinar, but it's not end yet because tomorrow we will be having more webinars that await you. So tomorrow there will be the topic that focusing on EV, electric vehicles, about the energy efficiency, about the future urban energy, and also about the data center management for energy. So lastly, I would like to remind you that don't forget to visit the marketplace platform, which is we will have the functions of making the video calls and chat function during today and tomorrow. So if you find any products or any information from the company that you would like to get to know better, you can just connect to them directly. So once again, I want to thank you to all speakers and all of the attendees who stay with us until morning or since morning until now. So stay safe and have a good day and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.